No,
Okay.
I think agenda.
All
I
right.
didn't
Do we have
receive any
anybody from the public
information.
watching this?
I didn't receive any either.
All
And there are
right.
no members of the public in attendance.
Okay, so we can move on to the next item.
Item 4, the minutes for the board meeting of March 18th, 2020.
All right, what's the will of the body?
Move we approve the minutes.
Yes, except the, I second.
All right. Been moved and properly seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth,
Luley.
Director Stanley, Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next item, please.
Item 5, information reports. 5A, receive an update on West County wastewater's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, Madam General Manager, who's handling this report?
Actually, Andrew is going to be doing just giving you an overview and talking a little bit more specifically about some of the items that have occurred and where we are at this point.
All right, Andrew's not going to read the report he sent out, right? He's going to add to that?
He is not going to read it.
No, I won't. I won't read it. I will read a couple of things or note a couple of things in the report, though.
Okay, great.
Good evening, President Alvarado and members of the board. I'm Andrew Clow, the Deputy General Manager. And as Lisa just mentioned, I'll give you a quick overview. We're maintaining our same mission, keeping our employees safe, the community safe, and trying to operate with the minimal amount of staff. As I'm sure everyone is aware, the county order currently runs through May 3rd, and that current order required us to take some more stringent actions regarding construction, which we talked about at the last meeting, but we took those actions since then and shutting down construction contracts unless they were immediately necessary for the maintenance, operation, and repair of the infrastructure. The governor spoke yesterday and laid out a number of what he called his indicators that when there's certainly pressure out there to bring people back to work and start businesses and get the economy going again. But our governor was pretty clear that that's not going to happen until a series of a number of indicators that he's identified are in place. And so generally what that means to us is that there's no way that business as usual is going to start on May 3rd. It's going to be after that. And our general strategy on that is going to be that we were first out, meaning that we sent people home and started to slow down our operations pretty quickly. And our intent is we're not going to be the first ones back either. That is, if we can continue to have people work remotely successfully, if we can keep a minimal amount of staff in the office, we need to find ways to open back up. And and I'll talk about a couple of those briefly, but we want to keep our employees and the public safe, and we want to keep our operation going. And I just in general would like to say that, and Lisa may want to echo this, that I've been quite impressed with how well the staff is working together in these current conditions and how productive we have been able to be in spite of the barriers. And a big part of that was getting people up and running remotely, and that's what we mentioned on here, that about 40% of our employees are currently working remotely. And that was a lot of work by administration, by Justin and his team to really help bring people on board and be able to work remotely. And a lot of work is getting done, a lot of standard operating procedures, a lot of training, a lot of work that had been on the back burner, administrative work, electronic systems, starting to work with more of those to help us. All the things that we've been talking about wanting to be able to do, and we've been doing, but since we can't do some of the other tasks that we would normally be doing, we're being quite productive in many other areas. That being said, not all of our staff is able to come to work and be productive in that manner, so our operations staff, but we're also looking at how we can bring some of them back in, staggering the shifts and things like that, because we are going to have to start to do some more maintenance than we've been doing, or we're going to start to run into problems with the system. So
Right.
that will be happening regardless of when the orders are lifted. Some of the other things that, well, I can, before I jump to that, I can talk. I know you said you didn't want me to read the report, because we can all do that. If there's any other questions that people have on the report, the one thing I'll do is I want to jump briefly to talk a little bit about our workplace exposure control plan, and then a little bit about coming back to work.
All right, why don't you hold it there for 1 second?
Okay.
And then we'll start with, did Director Stanley ever make it?
She is not on.
Okay, so Director Weiner, do you have any questions for Andrew on his report?
I do not.
Okay. Director Cepeda?
No questions. Thank you. That was a good report. I'm looking forward to the rest of it.
Vice President Sudoff, any questions on the report?
Yes, sir.
All right, I do have a couple of questions. It says you have 3 people that are not working remotely at all and just, I guess, have been paid. What services are they providing?
Hold on, let me see what you said 3?
Yeah.
We actually have that number. Okay, let's see. The average. I'm not quite sure where we actually said that number, but
Right at the end of the report, it says only 6% were unable to work any hours, either remote or on site.
oh, okay, the 6%. I was looking for this 3. Yes.
I just figured out that's about 3.
Yeah.
I
That
could speak to that, Andrew, if you'd like.
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is from our first payroll report. The staff are primarily collection system operations. So they were just, there was no work for them at the time and nothing to do back at their normal office. And so they were paid the admin leave during that time.
All right, so are they working now or are they still at home?
I could talk off to Michael or Andrew if they could speak about what the plan is.
I can take that if you like.
Go ahead, Michael, and maybe it'd be a good opportunity to say a little bit about the protocols that you've put in place recently for those that you are bringing back to do some of that maintenance work.
Yeah. Hello, this is Michael Savannah, the Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. To answer your question, President Alvarado, we are in phases bringing back our collection system crew. We started this week. We have them broke up into 3 different teams. They're coming in and they're focusing on our hot spots in the district, the areas that we know we have some capacity issues or they're known to clog with wipes or they overflow. They're also doing some lift station cleaning as well as some regular maintenance, trying to make sure that all of our vehicles are in order and they're not sitting idle so that we don't have any issues if we have to respond to an emergency. So all of CSO is coming back on not a full-time schedule, but a sort of segmented or altered schedule. We have, again, 3 different crews, and essentially they come in about once a week, each crew. Some of the protocols that we're putting in place are just to ensure that folks are safe, and it includes things like riding in separate vehicles. We don't have any CSO people riding in the same vehicles, keeping their 6-foot social distance, wiping down all equipment and vehicles with Lysol or some other disinfectant upon entering and exiting the vehicles, wearing masks when they need to be within less than 6 feet. So those are the sort of things that we're implementing as we bring them back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the update. As far as, I just have a comment, as far as the 28 employees that are working remotely, I think that's remarkable that you've been able to incorporate them into getting to work remotely. And do you anticipate that number going up any further?
President Alvarado, there may be, 1 or 2 that may be able to start working remotely additionally.
Okay,
but right now, I think we're about at the most people that would be working remotely.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. That's about 50% of our workforce, right?
It's a little under, about closer to 40%. But yeah, it's a pretty sizable number of our workforce.
Okay, good, great. I have no further questions, so you can continue, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Director Alvarado. The only other things that I really wanted to highlight is attached to the report, we did put what we're referring to as our social distancing protocol and COVID-19 workplace exposure control plan. The county health order required us, well, we took it on to say that we were required. There could have been some argument to say that we were essential infrastructure, not an essential business like a grocery store, but we took the more conservative approach. And the first 2 pages of this document are posted at the workplace, on the front doors, etc. And there was a question from Director Stanley earlier about, are things available, are wipes available, are sanitizers available? And this plan does go ahead and include that kind of information too, from where the supplies are in each location, what types of supplies we have available. And then it goes on into some more specific things like Michael talked about, where if we do have to do work where people are in close person-to-person contact, which will happen on some of the maintenance, and that was the primary reason where much of the maintenance crews and the CSO, mostly CSO, were not at work, because they'll have to be working in close proximity, and it wasn't at that point essential or immediately necessary. But we're bringing some of those workers back. But this lays out some of the workplace safety protocols that we want to have in place to keep people safe. And what we'll do with this plan is we're taking a look at what it will look like when we do come back to work. It is definitely not going to be the same.
Right.
But what it looks like, none of us know for sure. But those 28 people that you saw there working remotely, well,
Right.
what in all likelihood will happen? I could take myself, for example. And then Justin, we'll use us as 2 examples in 2 different buildings, is that instead of coming to the office 5 days a week, Justin and I may come to the office 2 days a week and work remotely the rest of the time, because we're capable of being able to do a lot of our work remotely, and yet some work we definitely want to have a presence in the office and be able to go to those kinds of meetings. But if we can continue to do that, that'll allow us to have fewer people in the office, which will make it much easier for the people that do need to come to the office or are there to be able to practice the physical distancing and keep separate from each other. We'll have to work on things like the lobby open to the public. We'll put in some safety protocols there, perhaps some screens. Do we require masks? All of these are the kinds of things that we'll have to take into consideration. Well, what happens when we do a board meeting? How long will we keep doing a virtual board meeting, or will we start to have a public meeting, and how will we arrange the boardroom? So all of these are the different types of things that we're going to have to take into consideration, and we'll start to put these ideas together and start to put the plan together. And essentially what it is an extension of our existing workplace exposure control plan, and developing specific standard operating procedures like Michael just referred to for how they'll bring back those crews and how they'll work together, individuals in trucks, how we clean down the vehicles, how frequently we clean the bathrooms. All of these are the things that we're going to be considering, and we're not rushing to do it. We're going to be able to bring back and have most of our staff work effectively either remotely or on staggered shifts, and then minimizing the people actually in the office. And we're looking forward to that day, but we're not rushing towards it as there's some magical date out there like May 12th or something like that. But rather, we're going to set up procedures and be ready to bring people back safely when that time comes, as well as being able to serve the public and do that safely as well.
Okay. I have a comment before I open it up for questions. But I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. I mean, in this day and age with not just COVID-19, but with the actual flu that has killed more people than, COVID-19 will ever even dream of, I think we do need to start being a little more safe, talk about how we can stop exposing our employees to these infectious diseases, which now seem to be coming up everywhere. So I think it's something that we definitely need to think about and have a plan in place for once this pandemic is over, that we're ready for the next phase. Whether it be people working from home, which is not a bad idea. I'm not opposed to that at all, especially with all the technology we have. So anyway, I'll open it up for questions. I understand that Director Stanley has joined us.
If I can just add
Go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
no problem, to your comment, that we are absolutely keeping that in mind and wanting to plan. A lot of our initiatives actually are supported by the things that we've kind of been forced into in this situation, but was the direction we were headed. We have space planning issues. We have, our facilities are don't really accommodate everyone, and we are a little bit crammed because we have more staff than can really be accommodated in all of our spaces.
Right.
We are really heavily moving into more of a electronic world and wanting to do more things online. We actually have done surveys of how much foot traffic actually comes into our office, and it is very, very minimal. So that really supports the need for us to move a lot of things to self-service and getting things online for people, which means that we, one of the things I had been starting to look at is if we should be closing our offices maybe one day a week to the public, and when we've done a survey, we just don't have the foot traffic. So, and I think what we're learning is that not having sort of the distractions, even if they're minimal, just the kind of coming and going, is that it is allowing people to be a little more productive and get through some of those other things. So we are looking at this as we will not return to business as usual. I think you're going to see a lot of different options. And as we look at the workforce that's coming in, they want more flexibility as well. And so this can prepare us to actually offer that as an option to staff going forward. Now, some positions don't lend themselves to it, but where we can be flexible, we want to. So that's something that we're definitely looking at and we'll keep in mind as we plan sort of our return and just what we look like going forward in the future.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for that. Is Director Stanley with us?
Yes.
All right. I'm opening up the questions. You're number one on the list. Any questions for Andrew or Lisa?
Not at this time.
Okay. Director Weiner? Are you muted? You're muted.
Have no questions, and the report was sufficient, and I'm happy with it.
Thank you. Director Cepeda?
Yes, first off, thank you for that report, Andrew and Lisa and Justin and Michael. A few things that we've seen, and I know that this is an ever-changing issue going on with COVID-19. Every day something happens, something changes, we learn more. The CDC yesterday was talking about different ways to reopening back up and the pathways they might be taking. And one of them, as I had mentioned in the last meeting, which I don't think it was yesterday or last week, I don't remember when we last met, but one of the items that they were talking about was antibody testing. Now, there is no companies out there, and I did a lot of extensive research because this is what I do for a living. I did a lot of research on companies, and none of them have FDA approval. There's only 2 or 3 that had the emergency utilization approval by the FDA, which is the closest it can get to an FDA approval. And what they were looking to do, or the thought for them, is that to safely move the workforce back in, still only having a few months of data of what COVID-19 is and what it can do, their thought is that if people have developed an antibody, and if once you have an antibody, it means what they're hoping is that once you have it, that you might no longer be contagious, and that you can successfully be put back into the workforce because you're not going to get anybody else sick, right? And there's so many different tests. Then there's a test to see if you actually have COVID and if you can make others sick now, versus the antibody means you already had it, and again, you're more likely going to be I don't say healthier, but I guess healthier to bring back into the workforce. I don't know if we thought about doing this. Again, there's not a lot of tests. There's only a few companies that are even considering working with the FDA on this. Actually, there's a lot of companies, but only a few of them are even trying to work with the FDA. So if we want to look at the guidelines from the FDA to see what they want the companies to do as they're reopening themselves back up to the public, especially when it comes to the workforce. So that's one, just putting that out there. It's been talked a lot in the news, antibody testing. Again, there's a handful of companies that are thinking about doing it. There was one really good one that had the FDA, EUA, and they got pulled back yesterday, because what that does is it puts the continuing testing. So they're using it. The FDA says you've got this emergency approval, continue testing, but provide us the data, and then we'll see if we continue giving it to you or we put it back. For them, it got pulled back. But this morning, they released 3 new companies that they are able to have these antibody testings. And again, it's a shot in the dark because they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Something new can happen.
Right.
But if we just look at that, because that can allow us to open up the workforce safely. Because knowing that taking body temperature is not a tell-all. So, washing your hands is not a tell-all because somebody can sneeze and get on places. So just a thought on that, antibody testing. And Lisa, going on off of what you were saying, I think that's a really great thought. Reopening up the office, looking at the space that we have. And I don't know, and I'm sure you already thought about this, but any infrastructure projects that we can do right now before people go back to work, right? I know that maybe making some of the walls a little bit thicker so there's more personal sound barriers, right? So when you're having meetings, you're not hearing everybody else 2 blocks away. Some of these projects, if we're able to do them, so that way we eliminate the workforce being pushed around when we do go back to work.
We are looking at doing some things now, but we are under no construction. So, and unfortunately we can't, there are certain things we can do, but we can't do a whole lot of things quickly when it relates to that, and probably not quickly enough. And we would have to be careful about the fact that we're still under a no construction order, and we ourselves have shut down construction. So we want to honor that part of the code, but we are doing some things where we can that I think will do that. It's going to take us a bit of time to prepare the workspaces for people to come back and feel that people are able to safely distance. And that's why Andrew was talking about maybe the staggered schedules or fewer people in the office at different times. I mean, the reality is if we're doing the work and we can get our work done where we're making sure that we're meeting our objectives, we're making sure that we're continuing to collect and treat and recycle wastewater and do all the things that support that, how we do that work is less important. So again, I think that's when I say we won't be returning to things as usual. It'll be different for a while, but we certainly, space planning is absolutely, and the office is definitely one of the things that is on the list that Andrew is looking at as we develop our back, kind of bringing people back. So. Yeah,
if I could add to that, Lisa, that would be great if we could go in and do some of that kind of construction work, but the county order is pretty clear that would not be immediately necessary for the maintenance repair of the essential infrastructure. That would be to help us bring our regular workforce back. But I think that the antibody tests, all of these other types of things that we could do possibly in the future that would help provide some additional certainty that an individual may or may not be able to transmit the disease or is now immune from it. The approach that we're generally going to take is we're going to assume that every employee coming into the office is capable of transmitting the virus to the rest of the workforce. And that's why our main concern is going to be to continue with as much of the physical distancing, as few people, as we bring people back. We're not trying to rush them back and jam them in together. If we can find ways of working remotely, if we can find ways of staggering work shifts, if we can insist that people wear masks once we go through and get the proper amount of supplies and fit testing, et cetera, we're going to do that. Hopefully what you're talking about, the antibody tests and things like that, will be coming, and vaccine for that matter at some point. But until that time, we're going to assume that it isn't available and it isn't something that we can depend on. But we certainly are hoping it will be, because there's other factories, factory work and places like that where they're going to have to put a lot of people in close proximity to each other. They're not going to have the types of opportunities that we have to be able to sort of stagger our shifts and move people around and insist that we'll continue with meetings. For example, the small conference room next to Lisa's office, we'll put a sign up there and say no more than 2 people at a time in this room and things like that, so that we'll continue to try to keep that separation until we get to the point where we are in the place that you were describing, that the testing is adequate and we know that we can move forward like that. But prior to that, we're gonna move with caution.
But I will say that some of the things that have occurred since we've been doing this, meetings are an example. Having the ability to get our staff together on Zoom, while it's not perfect, it's actually provided a better level of communication throughout the organization. This is the first time probably in a year that we are talking, all supervisors are talking every single week. It's almost impossible, and almost every supervisor has been on the call each time. So the ability for, sometimes it's very difficult to get people scheduled, to get people, which location are we going to meet in? So I think that there are a lot of things that have occurred here that we can continue to take advantage of, because they're actually making us more productive and better at doing what we need to do. Certainly, there is that connection point that people need to have, and you need to bring that back at some point. But, we have tools, thankfully, that are allowing us to continue to do the work we need and to actually be connected to people. Not in exactly the same way, but people can see each other. They can talk to each other, and people are actually doing that a little bit more, I think, than they were before. So.
Good. All right, Director Cepeda, does that answer your question and finish your comment?
Yes, thank you so much for that.
All right, you're welcome. Vice President Sedif?
Thank you. A couple of things. I think we talked about this the last time, so I want to make sure that I bring this up, and then I would like our board attorney to weigh in, because I know I brought this up before, and so I'm going to bring it up again. The thing with the EEO particulars, when you talk about invasive procedures, anything dealing with medical and especially anything that's requiring our employees to submit to anything dealing with medically protected and HIPAA protected rights. And the EEO takes a very hard line towards anything dealing with genetic testing, of which that's what you're talking about when you're talking about these new tests that everyone is going crazy about. These are genetic tests, and the EEO takes a very hard line when it comes to this. I know everybody's going crazy about this new thing with COVID, but it crosses the line. The temperature check is one thing, but even the temperature check cannot be for every employer. That temperature check is for certain essential positions. Every employer can't require every employee coming into their site to take a temperature check. If you look at the way that the regulations is written, it is for certain customer-facing employees. You work in certain industries, you can't just make every employee coming into the building take a temperature check. So we have to be very careful when we are trying to pass these types of rules and regulations to make sure that we are within the confines of our laws and not violating employee rights. It sounds good, and I would want to make sure myself that I'm covered myself when I'm going back to my own office. But even listening to the governor this morning, he brought these points up, which is why he was saying we're going to go by science and we're going to go by law, and that's why he wanted the rolling phase-in in bringing people back to the office. The other thing that he spoke of, which I know that Ms. Lisa and Andrew were alluding to, was that classes are going to look very different. And so we as board members have to wrap our head around when we talk about our new, the strategic plan, and when we go into this new budget cycle, is this office planning. It's got to look very different. We've got to restructure the way employees are going to be physically seated in these offices. The new construction has to have them with space around them. And that's like moving forward. I know some of you in your daytime, our mortgage paying jobs are going to be looking at this in our other capacities. And so all what do you call this? Employers are going to be facing this. And so we're going to be facing this in all of our sites, and how we reconfigure our workspaces, including the labs, so that our administrative spaces, so that our employees have that these new rules that they haven't even come out with them, but they talked about them and what that's going to look like. So again, how they work, it's not my call. I'm going to leave it up to Ms. Lisa and her staff, and how they bring us back these recommendations on what they need. The technology to get it forward, I personally find this much more effective myself on how I work. It's not going to endless meetings all day, but they've been replaced by endless Zoom meetings all day. But but I do want us to be careful about how we posture putting into things that may violate something else. So that's why I'm asking Nick if you can let us know, if you know. President Alvarado, that's why I'm asking you.
Okay, Mick, is Mick available? Is he with us?
Yes,
All right,
he's here.
you want to weigh in, Mick?
I'm online. I'm watching. The
All
point
right,
is,
can you weigh in and comment on some of what the Vice President spoke of?
I think her points are well taken. I think what we have to do is figure out what the optimal thing to do is first. Second, the second question is, can we do it? Can we legally do what needs to be done? Second and third question is going to be, should you do it even if you can? That's going to be part of the overall long-term planning. But and these rules are going to be evolving. They're probably evolving as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think unlike what Andrew talked about and some of the other things being the first out, we will not be the first out with these. We will definitely not be innovative and the first ones to experiment this way. We also have unions that also have to be consulted and discussed. So we're not, even when this first started and we were trying to put something in place to protect people, we were very limited with what we could ask people, and it's frustrating because really everybody just wants everybody to be safe, but we are bound by the law and doing what we need to do. We won't be able to be the first ones out there doing all the experiments and testing out on our employees. So we'll be very cautious. We'll follow the law. We'll follow science and follow the best practices for sure.
If I could add briefly to that, just to go back to what I had said earlier, is that initially we're going to assume that everyone may be capable of transmitting the virus to each other. And so we're going to ask that all employees continue to practice the safety procedures that we put in place. We're only going to slowly relax those, even as we bring more people back into the office, and then be able to take a look at some of these other options. But we hear you very clearly, Director Sudduth. It's that's important to us. We'll follow the law, but we also, just want to make sure that that's ethically the way that we want to operate as well.
Vice President Sudduth? Good with that?
Yes, and just one more thing. I know that you said we posted the information on the site. Are we also posting, I know that Alameda County, and I know that Contra Costa also came out with something very similar, the social distancing protocols that are usually attached to the contracts. We have something very similar, right, that we're attaching to our contracts?
Andrew,
For our contractors and subcontractors?
They will be required to abide by our workplace exposure control plan.
Thank you.
All right. Director Weiner, I see your finger up.
Thank you, President Alvarado. This is for Mick. Can't the governor declare laws suspended for moments and then take the heat from the court later? For example, require certain tests of everybody going back to work. Not that I'm suggesting he do that, but would it be possible? I mean, hasn't it historically been possible for in times of emergency for the governor to suspend certain laws in the interest of public health?
Yes, but what you're talking about and what Vice President South was talking about are things that invade a person's right to privacy, both medical and personal privacy. That, in my opinion, would be beyond the scope of anything the governor could do. I mean, certain laws can be suspended, right? We got the executive order that suspends provisions of the Brown Act so that we can conduct a meeting like we're doing now. Those are procedural. Those don't go to the heart of somebody's right to privacy. I think we've got to be very, very careful when we invade that space.
Answer your question, Director Weiner?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? If not, we're going to move on. Seeing none, next item, please.
I think Vice President Sudduth did.
Oh, she did?
Well,
Yes. Yes. Let me just say this. I don't want to belabor it. I just want to say this. It's because Mick just touched on it. I'm trying to remember the case, and I will remember it, and then I'll let you know. It's because you might find out something that you're not supposed to find out by doing these tests. That you might find out that has nothing to do with COVID. It has nothing to do with somebody's temperature. And that's the problem. You might find out, this happened during the whole AIDS epidemic, that people found out information they weren't supposed to find out, right? And that cannot get into the public sphere. And especially if it's by accident, it's that type of privacy. That's where HIPAA laws came in. So Privacy Act came in. And we don't want to be in that type of slippery slope. That's where I'm more concerned. You need to know this type of information about people. And you don't want to be in the middle of that, trying to find that out. And it's just, I'm just going to tell you, I got in the middle of one of those where we found out, we got somebody's test back and found out that the test came back in a way that we weren't expecting. And it became a very bad rumor mill when the test came back away, and then somebody started a bad rumor in the government. It was actually a government employee. And it was very, very ugly. So you don't want to do this. We want to be very, very careful on what we do with people's private information. And I'm very, very, very keenly aware of that. That's all.
President Alvarado, just to clarify too, for me, the antibody testing would not be done by West County Wastewater District. Right? We would hire a company that does medical stuff. So, they wouldn't send a list to Lisa saying, okay, here's the positives, here's the negatives, what do you want to do with them? It would all HIPAA compliant. That's what the goal of it. No, but I think Cheryl has a really good point. Like, we want to make sure that we follow the laws, and HIPAA is really important. It's there for a reason. but the company would be the one that would do it, not us.
Yeah.
We have a really good HR team.
I think everybody's concerns are relevant here, but I think we're way far away from this, so I think we're kind of beating a dead horse right now because we don't have all the information that we need to have. This is something that the board should definitely think about in the future and point towards. But I think Vice President Assad's remarks are well stated, and we should heed those. And I think we should listen to our attorney as well. And we can always work out the semantics of what we're going to do later on. So let's move on to the next item, please.
Item 5B, receive an update on the emergency repair at the Lakeside Lift Station.
So Michael Savannah is going to give you an update on the emergency repair that I sent an email to all the board members. We had a force main failure. I think it's been 2 weeks now. And so Michael will give you an update on where we are with that and how we handled that. And I think hopefully he has some pictures to share with you.
Good evening, Michael Savannah, again, is Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. I'll give you an update on the Lakeside Force Main emergency. Before I do that, I'd just like to let you know about the Hilltop Green emergency that we are required to update you on at every board meeting. All of the construction is completed at Hilltop Green. The park is back in service. The pipe is back in service. It's fully operational under normal operations. We're sorting through 2 change orders that we have on the project for change conditions that we found once we got in the field. Once those are completed and negotiated, we will tally all of the invoices and we'll be bringing a closeout report to the board. Does anybody have any questions about the Hilltop Green emergency?
Start with Director Stanley.
No.
Director Weiner.
No.
Director Cepeda. Director Cepeda.
Nope.
Vice President Sutter.
No, good job.
Did what? I'm sorry?
And no, good job.
Oh, okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. Michael, you can continue.
Okay. I'm going to share something with you all on the screen. If you look here, there's a very short PowerPoint here. So at the Lakeside Force Main emergency, we, as you know, got a call out of some water coming up from the ground. We went out and tested it. We realized it was sewage. For those of you who are not aware, if you look at your screen, the Hilltop Mall is sort of center bottom of the screen. If you go north, there's a living complex. Above that is the Hilltop Lake. If you go just to the right of that residential development, there is the Lakeside lift station. It's a bit difficult to see on the screen, but it's right about where my cursor is, if you can see the cursor. The lift station had a break in the line. We got out immediately and brought in these big tankers that you see on the screen. Those tankers carry about 5,000 gallons apiece. Those tankers allowed us to pump from our wet well and keep the flow out of the pipe, so we didn't have to use the pumps in the pipe. We fill those tankers up through those black hoses that you see there and a set of pumps, and then it's driven over to the Hilltop Mall. It's then dumped out, and the cycle is repeated. We did that overnight and throughout the construction until the pipe was repaired. We also brought out these 2 20,000-gallon tanks that you see on the screen now. They're the same tanks that we brought out to Hilltop Green, if you all remember. These were for contingency in case the tankers could not keep up during a rain event. When we were doing this work, we were expecting some rain. We were not sure how much it would be, and there were some challenges with access to the site. Let me go back one. If you look at this picture, these tankers are rather wide, and the road was just wide enough for one tanker to get down at a time. So we had to take a tanker down, turn around and take the tanker out before we could bring a second tanker in. So as you can imagine, there's some window there when we're not actually pumping, but we still have sewage coming into the wet well. The purpose of these tanks was in case that sewage was coming in faster than we could keep up, we could go over to those and not spill on the ground and then go back into the into the wet well when flows slowed down. Happy to report we didn't have any overflows at that point. We had a couple of close calls because of one of the trucks ran out of gas, so it was blocking the road. So once we got that moved, we were able to keep up with the flow, and we didn't spill any sewage. This is a shot. If you look straight down in the center of the picture, that's our wet well, and you see a tanker truck next to it. The purpose of this is really just to show you that the lift station is down at the bottom of this terrain. The break is right in front of you where this picture is taken. So it gives you sort of a understanding of what the site conditions look like. A lot of vegetation, wet, soft ground, a very aggressive slope, so a difficult area to excavate and to get in. This is our construction crew out there doing the work. What we ended up doing is, you're all aware that we have the various lift stations repair project going on. We sent out stop notices to all of our construction contractors. Valentine was one of our contractors. They're working on the various lift stations repair. We were able to quickly mobilize them to this site on a time and materials dig to do this repair for us. Because of that, we were able to immediately, on the 3rd, you can see the date at the top. That is so we got the call at midnight on the 3rd. So this is the same day we got the call. 18 hours later, we're already digging up the pipe. We have our contingencies in place. We have a contractor change ordered and on-site digging. This is the excavation. If you look at this, there's some green marks on it. That's where we found the break in the pipe. This pipe is actually in really good condition. A lot of this dirt underneath the pipe, if you look at it, you can see that there's a void on both sides. We only dug on one side of this pipe. The other side was already eroded away because this pipe had been leaking for a long time. This is part of the issue with force mains and pipes in general that are underground that you can't see. You'll have a hole in them and the water will wash away the dirt and the soil. This is why you get sinkholes in streets. You have the dirt wash away, and over time, the dirt above falls into that hole and you end up with a sinkhole in the street. So we had no idea that this 45-year-old pipe was eroding away the dirt underneath until we dug it up. If you look closely in the picture, at the bottom portion of the picture along the pipe, you see a darker grayish color soil. That's all contaminated soil that we had to excavate out to make sure that we left the site in the proper condition. This is our project manager, Keith. He's in the field. If you look really closely at this picture, in the center portion of the picture, you see the pipe and you can see a hole in the side of it. There was about a 5-inch hole in the side of the pipe, and then a hairline crack that ran about 8 feet or so, 6 or 8 feet down the pipe. Again, not something that you would know until you excavate this pipe. Looking at this picture, you can see we started the excavation in the daytime, and it's now 9 o'clock at night, and we're cutting out the pipe, and we're working well into the evening, well into the night in order to get this fixed and get the pipe back running and get the pump around trucks out of the neighborhood. This next picture is, again, at 10:30 at night, the same night on the 3rd, and that black pipe you see in there is the new pipe that we installed. This pipe is so heavy. This is a 12-foot section of ductile iron pipe. I don't have the numbers in my head, but it's so heavy that we had to use the excavator in order to put the pipe in place. If you notice, there's a red line coming from it, and it's going to a piece of equipment. Those 3 men that you see there could not move that pipe into place. So the pipe was replaced. It's back in service. We're currently working on the environmental remediation portion, the final backfill. What we did here is we replaced the pipe and then we put the old soil back in so that we wouldn't have a hillside that was unprotected. We knew that we needed to take that old soil out and get rid of it, but it wasn't a safe condition for our crews or for the construction crew or for the folks in the neighborhood for us to leave it open like you see it here. So we backfilled it with the native soil, which is not what we want on our pipes. We want new soil around our pipes and drain rock. We want the drain rock so that the water flows away from our pipe and reduces the ability for us to get I&I in our pipes from water sitting up against it. We did that. We let the site dry out for a few days, and then we came back and we excavated it again, and now we're putting in the new soil. That was actually going on today, so I apologize. I don't have a picture of that, but I'll have a picture of that for you in the next update at the next meeting. That backfill should be completed this evening or tomorrow morning. And then the final grading and compaction should be done by Friday. After that's done, we'll have the environmental remediation portion start, and that has to do with disinfecting this area because there was sewage on the ground. Disinfecting this area, disinfecting all of the storm drain area and the swell that's near here, and then putting back hydro seed and plant life so that the hill does not erode away and we leave it in better condition than when we got here. That should be completed by next Friday. It should start at the beginning of next week and it should be completed by next Friday. Once that's done, we'll do our closeout reporting and then we'll bring a report to the board. At this point, I'm open for any questions that anyone may have.
Director Stanley, any questions?
I'm just wondering, is this the project where some homeowner contacted me, and I know he mentioned he contacted President Alvarado and he reached out to Lisa. Is this the same project?
This is not. That is a different project. This is an emergency repair, a failure. It is a different lift station, though.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. All right. Well, thank you, Michael.
No problem.
Point of clarification, I haven't heard from any homeowner on any issue, either by email, phone, or in person. That's just
all right. Well,
you all set? Director Weiner? Director Weiner?
Yeah, I had to unmute. So we had a large lift station replacement or repair, not repair, but upgrade up in that same area. Is this a different lift station at Lakeside? It was a big project running last year, or and it just closed out, like within a year.
You may be thinking about the Hilltop Green lift station upgrades. That was the lift station. Let me go back a little bit. If you look at your screen, and you see, can you see my cursor here? It's showing you where the Lakeside lift station is. To the east of there, across 80, is where the Hilltop Green lift station is. So to the right on your screen.
And was that the one where, well, that's not the one in the park that you were just talking about, is it?
Yes. Yes,
No,
it is. So the Hilltop.
I'm talking about a project prior to that emergency. This was a scheduled maintenance repair upgrade where we changed a lot. We put in a deeper well and changed around a lot of things.
Yep, I understand. That's the Hilltop Green lift station. We redid the lift station there. We put a new lift station in about 2 years ago, and about a year ago we did the closeout report. We put a new wet well in, much deeper, much larger, new pumps. We did not put a new force main in. The force main is what failed.
Okay, just trying to keep track of the different lift stations.
Yep, I understand. There's a lot of it going around.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
That's all I have to say.
Director Cepeda?
All right, gonna get my cursor into the unmute button fast enough. Do we know why or how it broke? That's a really big, is it just time? That's a really big hole. Is it just time and old pipe or possibly something else, somebody excavating in there didn't know that was there or anything?
Yeah, we don't think anybody was there excavating because the soil and the conditions at the site didn't look like anyone was excavating. If I gave you a reason, it would be pure speculation, and I prefer not to do that. We don't know for sure why this pipe failed.
Okay, and thank you for that. And you say that you only had one entrance. The truck could only go one way. Well,
originally the road was only wide enough for one truck. after several hours, we figured out an additional way to get in. We ended up taking out some bollards at the northeastern section of the lake. Originally, those bollards prevented us from getting a second truck in. And the road at the southern part below the lift station was too windy for the trucks of the size to get up. So we had to take a road which was in the northwestern part of the lake and come all the way down to the lift station, fill up, and then take that same road back out. When we ended up removing the bollards, and I apologize for not putting this in the update. Sometimes in these updates, I'm challenged with how much detail to put in there. We did do some really good work with this emergency. We came in and we had a struggle with access. We also had some struggles keeping up with the flow. Originally, we brought out the vendor from Ponder. Ponder is the company that you saw the trucks that were on site. The vendor came out and made some suggestions to modify our pump setup so that we could pump 2 trucks at once as opposed to 1. That gave us the ability to keep up with the flow. That was an improvement that we made and documented, and we will put into our emergency response plan for this lift station. The other thing we did is at the northeastern part of the lake, we took out a couple of bollards that were in our way. And what that allowed us to do is create a circuit. So we had trucks coming in on the northwestern road, coming down to the lift station, filling up, and exiting on the northeastern road, which we couldn't do originally because the bollards were there. Once we had that system set up, we were now pumping 2 trucks at the same time, and we were able to run in series so we could have trucks stacked up on the road so we could quickly get them in and pump them out. Originally, we didn't have the ability to do that because we had some things in our way.
Thank you for that update. Just so you know, there's 4 entrances to that lake. One of them is an emergency entrance, right where their homes are.
Yep.
So you've got one entrance by the YMCA. You have one entrance in I don't know which way I'm facing, but I'm just going to use the north, south, west, east of this map. I think it's more or less the same in reality. So the top of the lake is YMCA. You see up there it says Hilltop Family YMCA. There's one entrance there, and then there's one entrance by La Petite Academy, which is on the left-hand side, just for everybody to sort of see where this is at. There's an entrance by La Petite Academy, and there's an entrance on the right-hand side, lower portion, right near the Hilltop Mall. You see where it says, if you go back to that map.
Oh, my apologies. Yep.
No worries, sorry. On the corner near where it says Aspire Richmond Technology Academy, which I'm sure you know these already. So those are 3 of the main entrances. And then an emergency entry or exit that you might be able to use, we can contact the HOA. That cluster of homes right there next to the lake where the little red dot is.
Outlook.
Yep, on Outlook.
Yeah, on Outlook Way, Overlook Way.
Overlook Way, yeah, that there is Hilltop Lake HOA. And where the little red dot is, that's their entryway. They do have a gate, but we can get it open for you. And then it pretty much goes around or through the middle of all the houses, and it pops down to the roadway. If you follow Outlook Way, it pops down to the other side, which is a gate right near our pump station.
Yep.
So
Thank you for that, Director.
Yeah, hopefully you won't need it again. Hopefully nothing else breaks in there, but if it does, you have 4 entrances in there that we might be able to use, and I can gladly help get one of these open if you ever need anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I saw Director Stanley had a question.
I did. Thank you for coming back to me. I have 2 questions that are kind of generic. You know, we're talking a lot these last few conversations we've had about emergency situations, and do we need to consider placing on a future purchase some of these tankers that we've used for emergency spills so that we have them as part of our arsenal, or will they always be available for us to call at the last minute? That's my question number 1. And then question number 2 is just generically, what are some of the causes that causes this size of a hole in a force main pipe? What is some of the, just genetically?
So I'll take the tanker question first. It's a very good question, and we are internally looking at all of the lessons learned from this emergency failure as well as Hilltop Green. From those lessons learned, we're debriefing the situations, and we will have a series of recommendations that come from that, and we'll decide which of those we adopt and which of those we don't. But that is on the table. That is something that we're looking at. We are looking at not only tankers, but what type of equipment do we need so that we can self-service, because these tankers are not always readily available. We haven't had much of an issue, and Ponder has been really great in working with us, but there could very well be a situation where someone else needs it as well. We have some other resources that we're able to tap into. When we're not able to get these, we get a lot of assistance from sister agencies, and we try to assist them a lot. So we've got really good relationships with some of the sister agencies, but this tanker truck has provided us and afforded us the ability to keep up with the flows in ways that we can't with our Vactor. So we definitely are discussing it internally. We haven't made a decision whether or not it is the best idea for the district or not. There's some other things to consider as opposed to just how it's helping us. We have to maintain it. We have to keep it somewhere. We have to have operators and drivers who know how to use it. It's not a piece of equipment that we would use other than in these emergencies. So it would be an insurance policy. It doesn't make it a bad idea, but there are just other things that we need to consider as well when talking about whether or not we should purchase one of these. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I'm just throwing it out there because I know you guys are the experts, and so I'm not getting down into your business. But you know, I'm thinking earthquakes and stuff like that. When if these pieces of equipment won't be available, if we need them, I don't know how important they are. But yes, it answers my question.
Okay. And your second question about causes, there's a number of things that could cause it. The two that pop into my mind really quickly are pipe failure. There could be a corrosion in the pipe, which we didn't see much of on this pipe. It actually looked like it was in really good condition. And there could be some crack or something pressing into the pipe when it was compacted, when it was installed. There are sometimes angular pieces of rock that poke up, and when you put the pipes in and you compact on top of them, we usually compact to about 90 or 95%, which is pretty solid. And having a hairline crack or something like that in the pipe from installation or even a manufacturer defect, over time, water will find its way out. So those are two things that could make the pipe fail. There could be a number of others as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Thank you, Michael. Vice President Sudduth?
Just two small questions or comments, whatever. When it comes to the tank question that Director Stanley just asked, just a suggestion. Maybe a better way is the partners that you're working with. Perhaps it may be a consortium effort to go and speak with some of our local partners. We have Stige, we have Central Sands, we have other partners in the local area that may want to invest or work with us. But again, that's you guys' call. That's not something that I want to get in the weeds with. But my other question is, how much resources have we had to expend in these emergency situations these last 2 quarters? I know you don't have the answer right now, but I'd be interested in seeing that because we've had quite a few of these emergencies pop up the last few quarters. And just looking at what we've budgeted for this type of thing, I'd like to know, have like a little true up for this to make sure that when we're looking at the budget coming up in these next few months, kind of where we stand on that so that we get a really good picture of what we need to be allocating. Because I'd rather us look at it proactively as we go into our budget planning for the upcoming year. So we can have some kind of estimate, so we can kind of true up this from this last couple of quarters. That would be nice. Do you understand my question?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. And as we close out the emergencies, we'll be reporting out on what it cost. And we hadn't planned on doing sort of a combined thing for the quarters, but if we need to, we can definitely look into pulling that information together.
I just think it will help with the budgeting. Miss Lisa, you were going to say something?
No, Michael addressed the question. It was just simply that with every project, we'll do the closeout report, and it'll have the dollar amount that we spent on each project. So.
But I'm thinking more of a for the last couple of quarters, only because I think it will help. Well, I know for myself, it will help me as we go into budgeting, just to see if we're if we're allocating enough resources.
Yeah, and typically we don't budget for emergencies.
I know.
We don't. I mean, we have, a capital expenditure budget, so we tap into that. A lot of it is staff time that is already allocated. Certainly the costs that are not anticipated so for staff, it would mostly be the overtime costs if they're on an emergency that, like Hilltop Green. And then certainly there were a lot of equipment costs related to Hilltop Green and having the trucks and things like that. But we don't actually set aside funds specifically for emergencies. Justin and I actually this morning just had a conversation about we may start to put a portion for some type of emergencies into a reserve. I mean, at the end of the day, we have the money, so it's not so much of an issue of not having the funds. We may just want to allocate some funds. I did joke with Michael that I think this is his plan to hurry up and get all the force mains fixed. But he said that's not true. It just happens to be that they actually just 2 of them failed. But we are going to look at maybe doing some type of allocation for emergencies just to set aside.
And I guess that's what I'm looking at, because I'm seeing this up, and I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing you, Michael, and I'm hearing you on this. When I saw the little red dots on the presentation a couple of months ago, so I guess that's why I'm asking the question. So okay, thank you very much. Thank you, President. I'm done.
Thank you, Vice President Sudoff. And my final not a question, but a comment, just to tell Michael and his staff and the whole staff that you guys did a great job with this, and your report was very concise and gave us a lot of information. So keep up the good work. Next item, please.
Item 5C, receive the Board Attorney's Statement of Services dated April 1st, 2020 for services provided in the month of March 2020.
Well, this is the time that you typically review my invoice and ask any questions. I sent out the usual explanation of things I thought needed clarification. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, Director Stanley.
No, I've got no questions. Thank you.
No questions from Director Stanley. Director Weiner.
You're muted.
It appears he's saying no questions.
You're muted, Harry.
Mute.
There you go.
These dang modern equipment computers, I tell you, I'm having a hard time. The question I have is unrelated, but I'm reminded of it. I'd like a report. Oh, never mind. I'll put that on the future agenda items. But I am interested, Mick, in any further El Portal development since your report, your email. Have they given us the info or?
El Port, you mean La Paloma?
La Paloma, thank you.
La Paloma, no, they have not.
Okay, thank
you. That's still in progress.
Thank you.
All set?
That's it.
Vice President Sudoff.
I am good. Thank you very much.
You are good, and so am I. Next item, please.
Item 6, matters from staff, general manager, attorney. 6A, staff, general manager, attorney comments, communications, report on issues or matters pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
Madam General Manager, please.
Well, I did just want to share that we did get notice today that the Elsa Bronte Stroll has been canceled for this year. So we will not be participating, unfortunately, in that. We did have a conversation about public outreach and just making sure that we're continuing to connect with the public. And so we'll continue. We've been doing a lot on our website, and we'll continue to use our website as well as Facebook. I think I mentioned previously that we're looking at getting onto Nextdoor. So we'll continue to do our outreach in the ways that we can given the situation. But I did want to share with you about the Elsa Bronte Stroll. And I don't know if Justin, Andrew, Michael, or Aaron have anything that they want to share.
I just have one comment that in Michael's slides that you saw there, I hope you noticed that our project manager was following the workplace exposure control plan.
I thought that was just the sewer smell he was trying to cover.
Anyone else?
Nothing from me, Lisa.
All right. I saw that Director Stanley had texted in that she had a comment. Was this on this item, Director Stanley?
No, Director Suddeth was asking about setting aside monies for emergencies, and the short period of time that I've been with the district, it seems like we have somewhere between 2 and 3 emergencies a year, and they run between $1 and $1.5 million. So if we were going to, based on just the short period I've been here, we did want to have a set aside somewhere. $5 million would be a good number to think about.
All right. Thanks for the input. We can definitely look at that at a future meeting. Any further comments or questions?
Well, maybe I can just ask Lisa a quick question, since we're not going to be doing a lot of this public outreach at events because they're all canceled. I believe in a previous meeting I had asked to see if there was any more of those grease and oil cups that we could maybe hand out. I am willing to go door to door and just leave them with a sign, obviously, that says what they're for, so people know to use them, because more people are cooking. So I think it's important to give them out and so they can use them.
Yeah, we're actually just had a conversation yesterday about getting more information out to the community about that. So I know that Joe is working on some messaging, and Aaron, I don't know if you can speak to that about the containers.
I don't know anything about the containers, but I'm happy to follow up and find out what we can do.
Because I'm willing to go out, and because I'm trying to get some steps in, because I've been working, I'm stuck at home, but I'm willing to go at least in my neighborhood and leave some of those containers with the sign that comes from the district that says, you know, as you're cooking, put your oil here and then throw it away, as opposed to putting it down the drain. Something that we can. I'm starting to cook, so that's scary right there. But then I had to teach somebody what they do with the oils. They were saying, "Oh, do we just put it right down the?" I know Cheryl's saying, "Ooh, I'm not killing anybody. Don't worry, I'm still alive." And it's more than free.
That's a great thought, Director Cepeda, but I'd like to hear from Attorney Cabral on the ramifications of that.
The ramifications of
going door to door, dropping off cups in our current situation.
You know, that is probably not essential activity. I wouldn't recommend it until the stay-at-home orders and the other relevant orders are rescinded. You could do something. You could post something on your website. I'm not sure I'd go door to door at this point.
Director Cepeda?
We definitely will get information up, and we just, like I said, we just had a conversation, and we recognize that more people are home as well, so we'll be getting more information out there.
Yeah, let's make sure we don't get into any hot water over this. I mean, it's a great idea, and I realize the sentiment. People are getting cooped up in their homes, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that the governor has told us we must stay at home only for essential services to leave the home.
Perfect.
Next item.
I would too.
Officer, there's a crazy man throwing cups at my house.
Yeah.
He's running by with a mask on.
Next item, please.
Item 7, matters from members of the board. 7A, meeting reports. Reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, and meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
All right, so can we start like we normally start? Director Stanley?
I've just been at home, so I got nothing.
Director Weiner?
I've been Zooming. I attended the El Sobrante Chamber meeting, and Lisa had one of the report items already, that the stroll was canceled, much to the chagrin of all attendees. And then they're organizing a Making Masks Matters, and they have a volunteer effort to make and or distribute masks. So, a thing to do. There are instructions online on how to manufacture a mask, and then a number you can call to bring it to whoever, and they will make sure it gets distributed. And then I attended the planning meeting and the Global Warming Committee meeting, which was great. The Global Warming Committee was numero uno.
Good for you. Sorry I missed that one.
You'll get the update and you will be amazed.
Sure I will. Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Spada?
Nothing for me.
Vice President Suttoff?
Yes, I've been Zooming like Director, like Director Weiner. We had a planning meeting, good meeting, on Monday, and we'll talk about it later. Lots of stuff coming out of it. And we've got a lot of meetings going on in the community. Most of them are focused on getting people either out of most of it's decarceration focused, but the most interesting one has to do with Alliance for Girls. I've been in that meeting. I'm working with some young women on a couple of things, and helping them do some things to give back to our community. One of the things we talked about this 2 days ago, I'm losing track of days. One was with Senator Holly Mitchell. She was one of our guests. Eleni Kourilakis, our Lieutenant Governor, was on the call. Aurora Pirno, who's an actress, was on the call. She's talking about things that we can do to keep girls and young women focused during this time of COVID-19. Lots of different projects from young women around the West County area. One of the projects that I'm responsible for, of course, dealing with wipes, keeping wipes out of our pipes, keeping sanitary supplies out of our pipes. So I'm working with some young women on that. As well, on the flip side of that is getting sanitary supplies to young women. It's one of those things we don't think about. Everybody thinks about how hard it is, yes, to get sanitation supplies, period. But that's one of the things that when you are of low income, it becomes hard to get. And it is a necessity. And so I'm working with a group of young women who, that's their service project. So if anybody wants to participate in that or knows young women who want to help participate in that for other young women who are impoverished or of low income, send me a note and I'll tell you how you can help young women and women, period, who are of low income and impoverished who need these necessary supplies, and it doesn't seem to ring a bell. They're actually appealing to Governor Newsom to make sanitation supplies, including these wipes we want out of our pipes, as a essential supply. And girls. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutton. I attended the planning committee as well. I also attended the City of San Pablo council meeting, and I attended the City of Richmond council meeting, which was an experience. I hadn't attended one in a while, so I highly recommend you attend one of those meetings. Two, look at a meeting that you would really look at it and say, man, I can learn a lot from this meeting on not what to do. But anyway, that's my own personal comment, not one of the board or anyone else. Next item, please.
Item 7B, good of the order, report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
Let's not all hurry up at once. Director Stanley?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Director Weiner?
Nothing?
Director Cepeda?
The only thing is helping out with the census. If anybody wants to help out, let me know. We're trying to get the word out. As you know, people can't go door knocking right now. If you haven't already done your census online, they're asking for people to help make phone calls to remind people, since again, they can't door knock reminding them. So they're wanting people to help make phone calls and send texts, etc., to remind people to do the census. Super important, so we can get more funding in our area. So that's it. Thank you.
Very important. Vice President Sutton?
Two things, you know, is they're doing virtual Earth Days. Plural. So if you haven't cleaned up your space around your neighborhood, do something. Clean up your space around your where you live. Since you can't go far, do that and celebrate the earth that way. It's so much cleaner now that nobody's driving and outside. The air feels better. My allergies are better. And then see, it's human beings who's causing these problems, if you notice. You see,
it is.
And CSDA is having a virtual legislative days this year. Instead of us going to Sacramento to talk to legislators, that we're going to be doing virtual legislative visits. So if you have not signed up, sign up to do virtual legislative visits. So we can talk to our legislators about things like no wipes in the pipes, which is a big one. And talking to them about these new laws that they've passed about granny units and other things. So sign up for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutton. I have nothing. Next item, please.
Item 7C, future agenda items have been informal observations and inquiries regarding the business of the district or requests for replacement of items of interest on the future agenda.
Director Stanley?
No, I apologize. I have something, but I've misplaced my notes, so I'll do it next time.
Sounds good. Director Weiner?
Yes, I'd like to get a update on the La Paloma issue that we've been working on for quite some time at one of the next meetings.
Okay, noted. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Thank you. Director Cepeda?
No, I think I've already had all my agenda items out there. Just, I'm sure that the list of items that we've asked before will be coming soon. So no future agenda items.
Thank you. Vice President Sutton?
Yes, talking about the emergency, building the emergencies into the budget. And then I do want to make sure we talk about, I think we talked about it before, but maybe I ought to reiterate it again, our plan for dealing with epidemics and pandemics, safety plans. I think it's already on the list. Moving forward into the future.
Okay, well, if it's not, it's on there now.
Thank you,
Anything
sir.
further?
No, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing. Next item, please.
Item 8, adjournment.
All right, we're adjourned. It's 8 o'clock. You all stay safe.
Thank you,
Great
everyone.
night.
You all.
Thank
Until
you,
next
everyone.
time.
Take
Yes.
care now. Thanks.
Good.